America is witnessing a nationwide immigration crackdown unlike anything in modern history. In 2025, mass removals surged across the country as new policies and local enforcement pushed thousands out. But 2026 could be even more intense. Today we're breaking down the 10 US states leading the largest immigration crackdowns this year. If you want more updates like this, make sure to subscribe. Number 10, North Carolina. Starting off our list at number 10 is the state of North Carolina. Current estimates show that around 325,000 undocumented immigrants are living and working inside this state. The biggest and most shocking change here revolves around the passing of a very strict new law. Before this year, many large counties in North Carolina acted as safe zones for people without papers. Local sheriffs strongly refused to work with federal immigration agents because they wanted to keep the trust of their communities. They believed that checking documents was not the job of local street cops. However, the rules of the game have completely changed for the year 2026. The new law entirely takes away the freedom of local police leaders to make their own choices. It forces every single sheriff and jail commander in the state to work closely with federal agents. Any local resistance or refusal to cooperate is immediately crushed by severe punishments from the state government. State leaders argue that this harsh step is absolutely necessary to protect their local community budgets. They point to reports showing that tens of millions of dollars are spent every year on public services. A huge portion of this money goes toward emergency medical care for people who do not have legal status. In crowded areas, unpaid medical bills at public hospitals have become a massive burden that locals can no longer afford. Politicians claim that keeping the old system will completely drain the funds meant for legal citizens. To enforce this law, the state is giving extra money directly to the police to upgrade their jail databases. Local officers no longer have the option to look the other way when they arrest someone without papers. Checking immigration status against federal records has become an automatic step for every single arrest. This shift turns North Carolina into a fully united force for law enforcement across all its cities and rural towns. Even though it is not a border state, North Carolina proves that geography is no longer a barrier to strict removals. Number 9, Mississippi. If North Carolina relies on strict rules to tighten the net, the state at number 9 is acting out of pure financial desperation. Mississippi has been ignored in national immigration debates for a long time, but that has changed dramatically. Recent data shows that about 35,000 undocumented immigrants are currently living in this southern state. This state carries a very deep contradiction when it comes to dealing with the current wave of new arrivals. Statistically, Mississippi ranks as one of the poorest states in the entire country right now. The average household income here is much lower than the national average, leaving very little room for extra spending. Because of this fragile financial foundation, state leaders argue they simply cannot afford any extra costs for undocumented groups. State officials point to estimates showing that Mississippi spends over $100 million every single year. This massive amount of money goes towards schools, community health care, and other basic public services. When the public money runs dry, political kindness is the very first thing to be thrown out the window. To fix this problem, lawmakers introduced a massive enforcement plan to create one of the fiercest crackdowns in the nation. This new plan aims to force every single county jail into a mandatory agreement with the federal government. This means local sheriffs will be directly authorized to enforce federal immigration rules right inside their own county lines. But the part that truly shocked legal experts is a special rule that gives the governor absolute power. The governor of Mississippi now has the authority to fire any police chief who refuses to work with federal agents. This level of direct control from the state down to local police is incredibly rare in the American justice system. It sends a clear signal about how serious Mississippi is when it comes to removing undocumented people. By directly threatening the jobs of local law enforcement officers, the state has destroyed any hope for safe cities. Experts predict that the number of people sent away from local jails will skyrocket this year. The current legal environment has turned Mississippi into one of the most dangerous places to live without proper legal status. Number 8, Tennessee. The panic over public money did not stop in Mississippi, and it quickly spread to become a weapon in the neighboring state. Taking the number 8 spot is Tennessee, where recent changes have directly targeted local city governments. Statistical reports show that Tennessee is currently home to about 130,000 undocumented immigrants. The most important turning point was when the state government passed a completely groundbreaking new measure. This measure actually makes it a crime for local city officials to vote in favor of safe city policies. With just one single rule, Tennessee sent a message that is much bigger than any physical border wall. They made it clear that they will not accept any political pushback from inside their own borders. By threatening criminal punishment for supporting immigrants, the state slammed the door on any city trying to resist. Every single mayor, city council, and police force is now forced to follow the strict path set by the state. This law is not just a symbol, because it also comes with very sharp financial teeth attached to it. A new state program has provided millions of dollars to police officers that agree to work closely with federal agents. This huge pile of cash is meant to add more space to detention centers and buy new transport vehicles. It also pays for the special training of local officers so they can act more like border agents. Leaders in big cities like Nashville and Memphis have constantly sounded the alarm about the rising costs of emergency care. Estimates show that the public service network is losing over $300 million every single year. Lawmakers use these exact numbers to justify their harsh crackdown, saying taxpayers cannot pay for federal failures. With this law fully active in 2026, local governments face real trouble if they step out of line. Tennessee is using legal punishments, big money, and intense political pressure to build a massive removal system. They are ensuring that the entire state operates as one giant machine designed to push people out. By the end of the year, there will be absolutely no safe hiding spots left anywhere in this state. Number 7, Oklahoma. Landing at number 7, the state of Oklahoma is the clearest proof of how fast this deadly trend is spreading. Current estimates show that there are about 100,000 undocumented immigrants living inside the borders of Oklahoma. Oklahoma made legal history when it became the first state far away from the border to directly copy the Texas model. The absolute center of this massive shockwave is a very strict and controversial new law. This law marks a serious escalation by creating a brand new crime at the state level called illegal presence. Under this new rule, Oklahoma police officers now have the independent power to arrest absolutely anyone on the street. They can make an arrest if they have a good reason to think the person entered the country illegally. After being arrested, these individuals will face direct removal orders from local state judges right then and there. They will no longer have to wait for the heavily delayed and crowded federal immigration court system. Giving this kind of removal power to the state courts is a revolutionary change in how America handles immigration. The main argument from the Oklahoma government is very similar to what other southern states have been saying all along. They feel that the absolute lack of action from the federal government has pushed them into a tight corner. However, the real-world impact of this law went far beyond the dry legal text before it even took full effect. Widespread panic and fear caused thousands of immigrant families to pack their bags and run away from the state. Many local businesses in the service and farming sectors reported a sudden and devastating loss of their workers. This caused major delays in production lines and left many farm harvests rotting in the fields. Oklahoma has essentially turned itself into a smaller version of the National Homeland Security Department. Living in Oklahoma without papers today means facing the constant threat of state criminal charges every single morning. Life here is no longer about avoiding random sweeps, but hiding from the daily watch of regular local street cops. Oklahoma has proven that states are willing to take matters entirely into their own hands. Number 6. Iowa. The domino effect from Oklahoma quickly swept up north, and the state at number 6 proves that this is a nationwide shift. Statistical data points out that there are about 40,000 undocumented immigrants currently residing in this farming state. What makes Iowa incredibly notable is that they represent the harsh wave invading the American Midwest. The new state law in Iowa was designed with one very specific and highly punishing goal in mind. This rule aims to severely punish anyone who tries to come back after already being kicked out of the country. The law makes it a very serious state crime to return to Iowa after a past removal or denied entry. People who break this rule will face long prison sentences inside the state prison system before anything else happens. They will have to serve hard time before they are eventually forced out of the country once again. The governor of Iowa signed this law with a very clear message about local towns suffering from the crisis. She argued that tiny local communities cannot continue to carry the heavy results of a broken border system. Leaders claim that small town budgets in the Midwest are not built to provide emergency schooling for a massive wave of arrivals. They simply cannot afford to offer free healthcare to a large group of people who just showed up. Even though human rights groups argue that this law breaks national rules, the state is moving forward anyway. The arrival of this strict new law paints a very dark picture for undocumented immigrants looking for a safe place. The map of safe places for people without papers is shrinking at a very fast and alarming pace. Northern and Midwestern states are no longer ideal destinations to hide or build a brand new life. In Iowa, the consequence of getting caught is not just being pushed outside the national borders of America. The true consequence is a permanent state criminal record that will forever stop you from stepping foot back in this territory. It marks a level of harsh punishment that this specific region of the country has never truly seen before. Iowa is locking its doors and throwing away the key for anyone trying to enter without permission. Number 5, Arizona. Entering the top 5 is Arizona, one of the oldest and most brutal battlegrounds in the American immigration war. According to population reports, this border state is currently home to around 275,000 undocumented people. Arizona has always been at the absolute center of border crises, but recent events have taken the tension to another level. A brand new Border Security Act is the direct result of intense anger from local voters and politicians. This strict law expands the power of state law enforcement in a way that we have never seen before. It allows state and local police to arrest anyone suspected of crossing outside the official and legal checkpoints. More importantly, it gives Arizona state judges the direct power to order the removal of these individuals immediately. Judges can now send these people straight back to their home country or back across the neighboring border. Financial pressure is once again the biggest driving force behind the massive public support for this harsh new law. Health officials in Arizona reported that public hospitals across the state have spent hundreds of millions of dollars every year. This massive amount of money goes directly toward caring for uninsured patients who do not have any legal papers. Many school districts near major cities had to cut funding for their existing educational programs to survive. They had to make these painful cuts to deal with the sudden spike in new students needing special help. Facing completely drained resources, the state decided that they could no longer wait for tiny relief packages from Washington. Public polls showed that a large majority of Arizona voters fully support these much stricter enforcement rules today. This public support gives lawmakers a very strong political shield to ignore any complaints from human rights groups. Arizona has completely shifted from playing defense to launching a highly active and aggressive offense against immigrants. They have turned thousands of miles of highways and desert into the most heavily watched zone in the entire nation. This state is no longer just complaining about the border, they are actively taking control of it themselves. If you do not have papers in Arizona, every single day is a massive risk. Number 4, Louisiana. While Arizona uses police power to arrest people, the state at number 4 chose a much more ruthless internal path. Statistical numbers record that about 70,000 undocumented immigrants are currently holding on inside this state. That state is Louisiana, a place that shocked the entire American legal world with its brand new enforcement laws. If other states use money to encourage police to work with federal agents, Louisiana chose to use the threat of a prison cell. A bold new law makes it a state crime for any law enforcement officer to ignore a federal holding request. This means a local sheriff can actually be stripped of their badge and thrown into a state prison. They will go to jail if they refuse to hand an undocumented person over to the federal authorities. Making it a crime for police to disobey is a move that has absolutely no history in the United States. It turns Louisiana into a perfect example of how politicians can force absolute and total obedience from their workers. The reason behind these extreme measures is the exact same complaint about tight budgets and heavy economic burdens. With the undocumented population growing in city areas, leaders estimate the state loses over $300 million yearly. Big cities like New Orleans have reported severe overcrowding in public schools and local community health centers. By the year 2026, this legal machine firmly locked every single local exit door available. Even if a city mayor desperately wants to look the other way out of kindness, they simply cannot do it anymore. The incredibly heavy price for showing any mercy in Louisiana today is the absolute loss of personal freedom. This extremely strict state law guarantees that the constant flow of deportations from local jails will never stop. The pipeline from a Louisiana jail cell directly onto a federal removal flight is completely secure and locked down. You will not find a single local official willing to risk their own life and career to help anyone out. Louisiana has successfully weaponized its own justice system against any officer who shows a soft heart. There is zero room for error and absolutely zero room for compassion in this state. Number 3. Georgia. Taking the number 3 spot is Georgia, a state that turned normal daily paperwork into a hunting weapon. According to data analysis, Georgia is currently home to a massive workforce of up to 400,000 undocumented immigrants. Georgia may not sit right on the border, but it has become one of the harshest inland environments in America. Instead of using visible violence on the streets, Georgia relies entirely on the power of paper, rules, and strict audits. A tough new law forces every single county jail and police station to check the citizenship status of every inmate. It does not matter what minor crime the person was originally arrested for in the very first place. If an individual is found to be undocumented, the jail has a strict legal duty to report them immediately. They must report the person to federal agents and hold them securely inside a cell until those agents arrive. To make sure no one ignores this rule, the state created a massive financial weapon of complete control. They will completely cut off all state funding for any local agency that fails to follow these strict new rules. Police departments face regular audits, and if they show any mercy, they lose millions of dollars of operating money instantly. However, this administrative crackdown is creating a deep economic problem that many experts warned them about long ago. Georgia has a massive farming industry, and a huge part of its workforce relies heavily on undocumented workers. When this new law created a dense web of surveillance, a large number of farm workers fled the state in pure terror. They ran because they were terrified of being arrested and deported for normal everyday traffic violations. The result is a severe labor shortage that has started hitting the core industries of the state extremely hard. Farms are struggling to harvest crops, and residential construction sites are facing major delays right now. Despite warnings about long-term damage, state lawmakers firmly maintain their very strict and aggressive stance. They argue that protecting security and cleaning up the state budget is much more important than saving local farms. Georgia proves that cold administrative rules can easily push people into corners just as effectively as armed raids. Number 2, Florida. The art of using the government machine to choke immigrants has truly reached its peak at the runner-up spot. Landing at number 2 is Florida, where a full-scale attack on every aspect of daily life is happening right now. Demographic numbers estimate that Florida currently has over 800,000 undocumented immigrants residing across the state. No other law on the East Coast has caused as much widespread destruction as the newest mandate in Florida. This is not just a basic security law, but a complete restructuring to make existence totally impossible without papers. The first pillar of this law forces businesses with 25 employees or more to use electronic worker verification system. It comes with massive fines and the constant threat of losing business licenses for any companies that break the rules. The second pillar targets the medical system, forcing hospitals to collect and report patient immigration data every single day. The third pillar refuses to accept driver licenses given to undocumented people from any other states in the country. It also makes it a serious state crime to transport these individuals into the sunny state of Florida. State officials argue that the huge immigrant population pushed public service costs over $1 billion yearly. They claim this new law is the only way to save local schools and hospitals from total and complete collapse. However, the negative impact on the Florida economy happened incredibly fast and has been completely devastating to local businesses. Reports indicate that losing the immigrant workforce has created massive holes in the local state economy. Huge construction sites across the state have reported serious delays because workers quit and immediately left the state. Farming and tourism are struggling with a massive shortage of staff for jobs that locals refuse to do. But for the state government, these economic losses are an acceptable price to fulfill their political promises. In Florida, police do not need to hunt people down on the busy streets of the city. The system is designed to cut off income and medical help, forcing people to leave voluntarily. Every hospital and business has become a hidden trap in this state. Number 1. Texas. Finally, all roads of the 2026 immigration crisis lead to one single place on the map. Taking the number 1 spot is Texas, the epicenter of the legal earthquake and the true blueprint for America. Statistical agencies record that Texas currently has an estimated 1.6 million undocumented immigrants living within its borders. No other state can beat Texas in size, funding, and pure aggression toward the undocumented immigrant crisis. Texas has always been the front line of every border war. But recent laws changed the game entirely. The combination of their new state laws has made Texas almost completely independent in managing its own border security. A groundbreaking rule rewrote the basic laws by giving any Texas police officer the direct power to make arrests. Officers can arrest anyone they suspect of crossing the border illegally into the United States of America. It also gives local judges the power to order deportations directly back to the country of Mexico. This is a massive power that the Constitution usually reserves only for the central government in Washington. At the same time, another rule ensures that every single county signs cooperation agreements with federal immigration agents. This combination has created a perfect deportation pipeline that runs entirely under the complete control of the state. The process from a highway arrest to a removal flight is now completely managed by local state officials. To keep this massive machine running, Texas has spent a staggering amount of money on border operations. Estimates show the state poured over $5 billion into deploying National Guards and state patrol troopers. They have also used this massive funding to build dangerous wire fences and expand local detention center facilities. Texas leaders constantly make strong statements, saying the failure of federal border policies forced them to act alone. They claim they had absolutely no other choice but to step up and defend their own state sovereignty. Almost every state on this list copied the aggressive tactics that were first invented right here in Texas. For an undocumented person, living in Texas means facing a billion-dollar hunting machine designed to push you out. The big picture of 2026 shows a massive shift in power across the entire country. State leaders are taking matters into their own hands and completely changing the rules of the game. Getting forced out is no longer just something you see on the evening news broadcast. It is happening at local hospitals, on busy job sites, and during quiet traffic stops on the way to work. These 10 states are building a massive machine that makes it incredibly hard for undocumented people to stay. Thank you so much for watching our video today. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button right before you leave so you never miss an update.